Hey, hey, hey. Happy Tuesday. Come on in. Pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch. Brought to you by, incredibly enough, thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. And more amazingly enough, we have a new sponsor. It is a new month. We have a new sponsor, and I will reveal that sponsor during the news segment of today's show. So stay tuned for that. So welcome aboard, everybody. Tonight is Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024. This is live stream number 1094. If you're not overly familiar with the show, let me point out, super casual. We just hang out talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news, and then I will normally pontificate about a topic related to our hobby, which I shall be tonight. In fact, I am kicking off Spooky September. Yes, you heard that right, and I'll explain that in just a moment. But it is Spooky September, and I will be talking about various ways that you can bring Call of Cthulhu to life at your game table. So we will be discussing some various different tips, some advice that I have for keepers out there. And of course, much of it will apply to just about any horror role-playing game. So that is our topic for tonight. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit gaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. And of course, because this is a live show, that means there is chat available. Now, it's not on screen. It's one of the ways I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay, and you must be a subscriber to the channel for at least 10 minutes before you can take part in chat. Yet another way that I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. But if you actually check those two boxes and you'd like to say howdy, maybe get a question, a comment, by all means, chime in. I will do my best to respond. And I do want to apologize. We did the Ask Me Anything last Thursday. There were a lot of questions that just popped on past that I did not see, so they did not get answered. Sorry about that. But hopefully it was a relatively entertaining AMA. Maybe. Gulp. All right, first out the gate tonight is Wallona's Cave. Viper Dave is with us, as is James Eck, Gleamwin RX, Semper Buffo, Ars Fabula, who last time popped in like with 5 minutes to go in the show. So they are early tonight. Mercurius, Alicius. Supposed to be kind of a Roman name, I think. It might be a first-time visit in chat for them as well. Chris Lundgren's in chat, as well as Flaming Huron. And I will take a stab that the lovely and talented Miss Sarah D is lurking in the shadows. She is one of our chat moderators, as is Flaming Huron. Very cool. Very cool. So as I mentioned, I am doing Spooky September, or maybe I should do it like Spooky September. Scary kids, scary. It's Dr. Tongue's House of Games. Ah, yes, I love throwing out those oddball Second City TV references from time to time, just to show you how old I really am. Yes. But the reason why I'm doing this is because if you notice, a lot of gaming outlets will focus on, horror games, horror role-playing games, things like that, come October. And by the time you'll see, say, reviews of various different maybe horror adventures or horror role-playing games, or even just mystery games, right? It's too late to actually get them delivered to your house, understand the game, and then run it by Halloween or for Halloween. So I thought, you know what, this year, I'm going to actually kind of try to focus in September on more like Lovecraftian horror and get some first looks out there, get some reviews out there. I've got some adventures for Delta Green that I can bring you some reviews of. I've got some Sons of Singularity, Call of Cthulhu release reviews that are good to go. I just have to shoot them. I'm ready to present them. So I thought that would be kind of cool, right? So if you find something catches your eye or sparks your interest, you've got plenty of time to order it, get it to your house, and prepare to run it sometime in October. Sometime in October, yes. Mike is with us in chat, as is Kevin King. John Mascola is also popping on in. So it looks like we've got a nice chat rocking and rolling. And yes, Sarah D is with us in chat, just adding more glitter to her band hammer. Chris Lundgren is asking how many folks took the bite. I guess, I don't know if I would say took the bite. I would say more like took the dive on in and picked up the 2024 Dungeons & Dragons Player's Handbook. So they are available on D&D Beyond, but not in PDF yet. They will not be available in PDF. Wizards of the Coast does not release Dungeons & Dragons 5e on in PDF. Now, yes, you don't have to tell me, but Jeff, it'll be available in PDF. I know that. I'm just saying legally it is not out there. So keep that in mind. I think Steven from Roll for Combat did a video today asking if people were picking up the new Player's Handbook or something like, it's out as of today. Are you buying it? I already have it. I already reviewed it. So, and once again, I liked it. I did like it. I thought it was pretty well put together. Yes, the artwork is just ungodly boring and real kind of... Flaming Heron says it will be available in PDF. When did they decide on that? Because last I had heard, they were sticking to their guns that they were not going to release it as a PDF. I don't know. Right, it is in an app. So, because of course it's D&D Beyond. Chris Lundgren's asking if I'm going to host more CBS Radio Mystery Theater episodes. I normally will do the October Spooktacular. I have to be very honest, though. I don't know. Oh, the winky face. Thank you, Flaming Huron. I was wondering. So, see, at this distance, I just see it's like a smiley face. I don't see it's like going, you should have gone nudge, nudge. Then I've been like, oh, yeah, I get it. I get it. Yes. As far as the October Spooktacular, I'm going to do something, but I don't know if I'm going to do just record new stuff to host, because this would be, I think, the 5th year that I would do a spooktacular. I don't do it every year. So what I was thinking of maybe doing is just kind of each day going back and seeing what's like the best of that date and picking one and sharing that. So rather than, having to script something out and record it, because, it's 31, spooktacular episodes. So we will see. We shall see. But yes, I have been thinking about what do I want to do for October. All right, let's jump on into the news, because now available for pre-order if you're going for the physical copy and out in PDF from Mongoose Publishing is Traveler, Warfleets of the Fifth Frontier War. Whoops, what in the world? Let's try that again. Thank you. From Mongoose Publishing is Traveler, Warfleets of the Fifth Frontier War. Here's the skinny. The outcome of the Fifth Frontier War will be decided by the clash of battle fleets and the capture of worlds. But fleets do not operate in isolation. Escorts, scouts, logistic ships, and raiders all play their part. It may be that a heroic convoy defense or a daring raid could tip the balance of a fleet engagement. A crucial mode of intelligence gained or interruption of communications might prove and provide an opportunity to win a decisive victory or avoid crushing defeat. Warfleets of the Fifth Frontier War presents the doctrines of the Third Imperium and Zudani Consulate and details warships from both sides of the conflict, from battleships to covert operations vessels and third-line warships of the Imperial Colonial Fleet. With deck plans and notes on variants, roles, and deployment, any of these ships can be used as a focus of adventure. The 174-page hardcover with PDF can be pre-ordered right now for $49.99. It is supposed to ship out prior to the end of the year, as far as I understand. Usually the pre-orders are not way in advance for Mongoose Publishing, but you can grab the PDF alone right now over at Drive-Thru RPG for $29.99. Very nice to see more Traveler goodies popping on out now that Mongoose Publishing owns the rights to Traveler. I know some folks were curious what was going on with 2300 AD, because the original news piece I saw was that Mark Miller had sold. See, it's still up in the air exactly what transaction took place, but that Mongoose Publishing had acquired both Traveler and 2300 AD. They did not acquire 2300 AD, but they are still licensed to create content for it. So there is that. Kabuki Kid is with us in chat. Yes, Double K's in the house. On to our next news piece. The core book, Metro Other Space, has arrived from Son of Oak Games Studio. Here's what I know. Demons with railguns, spirits in cyberspace, gods in the slums. Otherscape is a fantasy cyberpunk role-playing game that combines supernatural powers inspired by mythology and legend with the gritty, neon-lit streets of a sprawling, futuristic megacity. It takes your game group on a roller coaster ride of gunfights, vehicle chases, cyberspace heists, urban wasteland exploration, clashes of mythology and technology, faction wars, and philosophical questions about the nature of being human and how to transcend it. Metro Otherscape is the complete Otherscape core book with everything you need to learn to play the game. Setting rules, rapid and custom character creation and evolution, guides for the master of ceremonies, yes, the game master, and plenty of ready-to-use content, including a full learn-as-you-play starter job adventure. Imagine describes the Otherscape proto setting, a mythic futuristic world designed with room for you to make it your own, including examples and story hooks for characters, crews, corporations, sources, megacities, and more. Play delves into the game rules, both for players and the MC, including all the options, suggestions, and examples. Create offers a set of tools to create new player characters, crews, series, and megacities with plenty of ready-to-use content, rapid and custom creation modes, and a loadout tag catalog. Run has guides and resources for the MC on how to run the game and how to design your own series, jobs, and challenges, with a pool of challenges to start from. Strings Attached is a starter job your group can play on your first few sessions, which will teach you the game as you play. The 368-page hardcover with PDF can be pre-ordered right now for a sale price of $39.95. That is a rockin' deal for a 368-page hardcover with PDF. Now, I guess its standard MSRP is going to be $44.95. Now, of course, you can get the PDF right now if you pre-order, or if you only want the PDF, you can go grab that over at Drive-Thru RPG for $29.95. I have got to say, this looks pretty good. This looks very, very well done. If you are familiar with City of Mist, that's why you see cityofmist.co, because that is the website for Son of Oak Game Studio. That is a very, very popular sort of super heroic noir kind of role-playing game. It is built upon kind of a modified Apocalypse engine. So it's not truly PBTA, but it is very, very close to being considered PBTA. So, but this looks really cool. And there are a few releases for Otherscape. So today we're talking a bit about the core rule book. The rest of the week, we'll talk about some other releases that have come out for this. As far as I understand, the physical books are going to start shipping in November. So not too far off as far as grabbing the pre-order as far as it goes. Let's see who else has popped on into chat. 245 Trioxin says they play Traveler if that was the theme song. Let's see. Who else do we? I think we had a couple of more people pop in. Oh, there we go. Kathy Evans. Kevin King is with us. I see Roger Prudhomme and Lord Cost 2000 are popping on in as well. So very nice. Very nice. Chris Lundgren's talking about how some PDFs can't be read very well on tablets or in book form. They never have a problem with that. Yeah, it's the formatting. Normally, it's the formatting of the PDF. Although, on some occasions, you will find if you are not using, say, the Adobe, it's like the PDF reader. If you're using, say, like a Foxit or some other app that you can read PDFs with, sometimes those other apps don't render the PDFs as well as Adobe does. So, do not know. Sean O'Donnell's with us in chat, and Stephen from Roll for Combat is rolling on in. And that's a pretty good segue because earlier today, the aforementioned Roll for Combat launched a Kickstarter to bring the Battlezoo Bestiary Elemental Storm to life. I've got the lowdown on the project. Battle Zoo Bestiary Elemental Storm is a 250 plus page tome that brings hundreds of new monsters and monster slaying options to 5e and Pathfinder 2nd Edition. There's over 170 innovative and award-winning elemental monsters. Deliver a fresh and exciting experience and keep players guessing with over, once again, 170 new elemental monsters that channel the power of 20 unique elements, including classics like air, earth, fire, and water, as well as new elements like music, space, and time. Your players will never know what's coming. But what does award-winning monsters actually mean? Each monster found within all of the Battle Zoo bestiaries, including this one, were submitted to an open contest for new and aspiring monster designers. Entries were judged in 2 rounds. First, all entries went through an open judging process where anyone could rank each monster based on a number of criteria. After that round was completed, the top monsters were selected, and then industry professionals scored the top entries on new criteria, producing copper, silver, gold, and platinum winners, as well as one grand prize winner, which was depicted on the cover. Not only did each winner get their monster depicted in this book, but each was also awarded a cash prize. Money, money, money. Yeah, it makes the world go round. Inside the book itself, next to each monster, you will see each winner's name and medal rank. So yes, each monster in these books is actually award-winning. There is a short Kickstarter video about Elemental Storm, so let's give it a peek.
Listen up, Dungeon Masters. Your players are falling asleep at the table. What? Your wizard is going to use catapult to throw rocks at a monster again? How about instead of that, the wizard covers their body in rocks and hurls themselves? Now you're thinking like a badass using Battle Zoo Bestiary Elemental Storm. Filled with over 150 innovative elemental monsters, new elemental spells, and the monster parts system, allowing you to craft weapons, armor, and magic items from the creatures you slay, infusing elemental magic into them with 20 unique elements. Sure, there's classics like air, earth, fire, and water, but there's even weirder elements like music, space, and time. Doctor Who, Doctor You.
Wait, I'm a player, not a dungeon master. Why should I give a
Well, Yahtzee, how about a brand new character archetype, the Monster Hunter? Climb on creatures, target specific body parts, and weaken them. Or just grab a small monster and use their attacks against the big one.
Ooh, you sold me at big ones.
Best of all, this archetype can fit along any class. Fighter Monster Hunter? Duh. Monk Monster Hunter? Sure. Wizard Monster Hunter? Well, it'll set the difficulty up, but go right ahead. Elemental Storm is filled with over 250 pages packed with stunning illustrations, detailed rules on the monster parts system, and so much more for your Pathfinder 2e and D&D 5th edition games. Click on the link below or head on over to kickstarter.rollforcombat.com to secure your copy of Battle Zoo Bestiary Elemental Storm today, and turn your table from slow and crunchy to fast and furious.
Oh, the video's over. Sorry about that, everybody. Yes. Look at what I was reading. What was I just talking about, everybody? What was that video about? And of course, I have been sworn to secrecy, so I can't tell you anything that is in this book. I can't reveal anything that's within these covers. Nothing. Nothing. I can't tell you about that Monster Hunter archetype. No, I'm afraid not. And Steven's here in chat. He'd have my head. And Roll for Combat just happens to be our September sponsor, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. That's right. Roll for Combat is our September sponsor. In fact, They're sponsoring us a little beyond September, a little bit into October. And of course, we will be talking about Elemental Storm quite a bit over the next few weeks. So there you have it. I got to be honest, I have not had a chance to take a peek to see how far beyond its funding goal this has made it to. I assume it funded, in the first few hours or what have you. Now, I should point out, you can reserve a copy of Battlezoo Bestiary Elemental Storm in hardcover in the flavor of your choice, right? So you've got Dungeons and Dragons, you got Pathfinder 2nd edition. Well, you can do that for a $60 pledge. Or if you just want to score the PDF, you can do so for a $30 pledge through October 8th. And yes, expected delivery will be next spring. So there we've got that. I should also point out there are loads and loads of various different pledge levels out there. So if you want to get your hands on other Battlezoo bestiaries, like the original or Strange and Unusual, you can do so. You can grab it if you would like. So there you have it. So welcome aboard to Roll for Combat for our September sponsor. Yes. Kabuki Kid says, Jeff, you tease. Yes, that is me. I tell people all the time, I might be easy, I'm just not cheap. So it looks like Stephen from Roll for Combat is answering some questions that folks have. So very nice. Very cool. Stephen also points out they are actually the largest third-party publisher for Pathfinder because Mark Ziefter, I think that's how his name is pronounced, is their director of game design, and he, wrote a lot of the Pathfinder 2nd edition rules. So yes, I think that would kind of go along with things, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it? All right. So enough crowing about our sponsor. I mean, come on, man. I'm not like in the guy's pocket, for crying out loud. Let's move on to our next news piece. Right now, you can save big on the latest Humble Bundle offer. It features role-playing game content written by and influenced by Gary Gygax. And the bundle is called The Lost Works of Gygax. And I've got the deets on the deal. Mystical lost content for new campaigns. Gather up your party for an endless adventure with the Lost Works of Gygax bundle, compatible with a myriad of systems. This tabletop role-playing game explorer's kit contains rule books, source books, and campaign resources for Memorial Tomb, Gary Gygax's Necropolis, and more. Get everything you need to embark on an epic journey with your friends and help support the Navy Marine Corps Relief Society with your purchase. Now, you can jump aboard for as little as $5, or you can go all in, score all 46 PDFs for a $25 donation. These savings do run through September 19th. And once again, do not forget, your purchase will benefit the Navy Marine Corps Relief Society. And I should point out, if you happen to notice some of the videos that popped up this weekend, we did have a look at Castle Zagyig Igsburg campaign setting, which was the classic reprint edition. It is part of this bundle. It is available. It is at the $25 donation level, but the PDF of it alone is like $20. So if you were interested in it, and I even mentioned this in the video that I did the first look, I said, hey, you know what? Right now, you could go snag this as part of this bundle through September 19th. After that, you'll just pay regular price. Kevin King says they got this earlier. Yes, because it's been out for a little bit. And says there's stuff from Gary, Luke, Ernie, Matt Finch, and others. Several are quite good. I got to say, I have always heard really good things about Necropolis. Now, Castle Zagyig looks like it is just packed with content. Just kind of taking a peek through, it did look kind of like really traditional. So, like orcs in the woods and, elves and stuff like that. It didn't look like there was anything like kind of earth-shatteringly different about it. But it was looking like, man, that would be a pretty kick-ass locale, just kind of drop down into a campaign. And yes, we've got our fingers crossed that we are going to see these 6 volumes of Castle Zagyig in the, well, I was going to say near future, but that's not right. In the future from our friends over at Troll Lord Games. Lots of stuff going on this month. I will talk a little bit about when we wrap up the news. And then, of course, lots of goodies going on next month, too. So Kabuki Kid points out this is basically his castle Gygax and was working towards it. Kevin King does point out that it includes the Igsburg campaign setting and the Eastmark book, this bundle. So yes, you get a couple of Castle Zagyig releases. All right, final news piece. Now available for the Monsters fantasy role-playing game is Humans. And here's the details from Trollgodfather Press. This supplement to the Monsters rules, written by Ken St. Andre, gives details on how to create, train, and equip human characters in the Monsters role-playing game. It also includes how to add special abilities to human characters like vampires, avatars, and other enhanced humans. This book introduces new enhancements for humanoid characters like professions, similar to classes, skills, and special abilities. It explains training and gives advice of running avatar humans like vampires, fallen angels, and other beings hiding or trapped in human form. And for some reason, I just see an image that didn't have anything to do with this popping on by. I thought so. It's like, wait a second. That Cubicle 7 Games slide shouldn't be in there. I tell you. I'll get rid of that right now. There we go. Okay. All right. Hey, it's a live show. What can I tell you? Humans also covers elves, dwarves, and dwan, along with guidance for other human-like characters. It includes a list of human supplies, armor, and weapons, including guns. Plus, a new map reveals where the various humanoid groups live on Zimrala. This 38-page PDF is available right now over at Drive-Thru RPG for $4.99. And funny enough, we were just talking about this last week when I was talking about Tunnels and Trolls and how we've heard that there's going to be a new print run of it. Not sure if it's going to be anything different or if it's just going to be a new print run. We're not positive if it's the deluxe edition or if it's another edition, but we had talked about how Ken St. Andre went his own way and kept the rights to Monsters, and that there was supposed to be a human supplement. Well, here it is. In fact, I think it came out like the day we were talking about this on the live show. So kind of cool. Pretty nice. Very, very nice. And of course, if you are curious about Tunnels and Trolls, I believe this uses a relatively similar action resolution mechanic. I'm not positive, but I think it does. Because I always thought Monsters is kind of an offshoot of Tunnels and Trolls. All right, that is it for the news tonight. That's right, yes. Very nice. Very nice. Of course, I was just talking about Drive-Thru RPG. Don't forget, the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you are going to go visit, say, Drive-Thru RPG, Storyteller's Vault, Dungeon Masters Guild, Wargame Vault, what have you, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get 5% of that sale. And all those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up and help keep thegaminggang.com around. If you like this video, if you like the video, if you dig the channel, if you find thegaminggang.com to be a valuable resource, hell, if you just like what we do, then you can always swing on over to paypal.me/thegaminggang and make a small donation. Hell, you can buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda. Lovely. And yes, there are some of you out there who pop on by paypal.me/thegaminggang and make not small donations, such as our good friend, the Madman, who just isn't with us in chat tonight, and Kevin King, Agile Monk, Joshua Edwards, and others. Thank you very much. So there are some folks pointing out that they're getting some occasional freezes, that they did see the stream had stopped for some. It is not on our end here. I am showing 0 drop frames, 0, nada, nothing. It is YouTube. So we already know that YouTube has been experiencing issues with our stream. Hopefully it doesn't just completely fall apart, but you never know. All right, so there were a few things that I did want to mention before we get into tonight's topic. So as I said, this month is going to be pretty packed with content. I've got some Roll for Combat releases to share with you. So I just reviewed Jewel of the Indigo Isles. It's the Pathfinder edition. And I know Stephen had mentioned that they had made a change to the product page, because in the review, I had mentioned that there are a lot of monster stat blocks which are not present. They come from the Battle Zoo Bestiary. So I mentioned that because all that's there is sort of like the monster parts for the optional crafting rules that are in the Battle Zoo Bestiary. In fact, I think those crafting rules are in all of the Battle Zoo Bestiaries. I might be wrong. So we get like, okay, what are these parts used for and stuff, but we don't get the monster block. Now, that's not all of them, because there are a lot of new monsters that are in the Bestiary section for the adventure. And we do get some stat blocks of other monsters that are actually in the adventure. And as Stephen emailed me and pointed out, well, you know, if they included all those stat blocks, this is already 420 pages. I've been pushing like 600 pages. So I understand that. I completely get it. But when I run across stuff like that, and it's not been made plain to the potential buyer, I have to ding the resulting product. And it's something that Cobalt Press does. Cobalt Press likes to share adventures and stuff. And it's like, oh, well, you got to have Tome of Beasts 1, 2, and 3. But at least normally they will provide a list of replacement monsters from like the monster manual that you could switch in a pinch. So anyway, long story short, Stephen has changed the purchase page to indicate that so that people will now know that you really want to have the Battlezoo Bestiary, the original Battlezoo Bestiary, to get the most bang for your buck out of Jewel of the Indigo Isles. So I thought that was very cool. So when people think that reviews don't have any impact on a product, and I've seen different things before. I've actually seen companies change their mechanics of a game for their next print run based on reviews that we did back in the day. So yeah, you will actually see some things change. So some things do change based on a review, or, people take critiques to heart. So I appreciate, Steve. First thing Steven didn't say was, "Well, damn it, Jeff, what are you talking about? You bastard." Anyway, so I wanted to mention that. Also point out, if you tuned in a little late, September is going to be spooky September. And the reason why is because there are a lot of, gaming outlets start covering like horror stuff for October. And I understand, right? It's the spooky season, as people like to say. But the problem is you'll see a review of something that's, Halloween related or horror adventure or what have you. And you see it, it's October, and you're like, "Oh, wow, hey, I really like that. I'd like to get it." And then you order it. You never have it in time to actually run it for Halloween or Halloween week or whatever, what have you. So I thought, well, what I'll do is I've got some horror role-playing adventures and things like that I'm ready to share reviews of. So I'm going to do that this month. So it'll be spooky September. And tonight's topic falls into that whole spooky September. I'm not going to keep saying it like that, because that'll get old really fast. So that falls into the category as well. September is also Troll Lord Games Month. I've got loads of stuff from the Troll Lords I will be sharing with you. Some things I will do first looks and reviews. Other things will just strictly be reviews that do have page throughs. So keep that in mind. Also, I had mentioned I'm going to do some weekly sales where I might have 10 items that are available. That will begin next week. I was going to do it this week, but I've got way too much stuff going on, and it's too much stuff not affiliated with the gaming gang. It's like real life things that need to be taken care of as the season begins to change. So I wanted to mention that. Kevin King says lots of good content coming this month. Yes, there is. You will have plenty to take a peek at. You may have already noticed, not only did this review go up today, I also did my review of Twilight 2000 Hostile Waters. So that was the other day. I did a first look at Castle Zagyig, which I think I'm blocking with this shoulder. Igsburg campaign setting. So I did a first look at that. Tomorrow, you will see the review of Twilight 2000, The Black Madonna. So yeah, a lot of stuff cooking, a lot of things going on. I have some Sons of the Singularity, Call of Cthulhu releases that I'm doing some reviews for. So those should be later on this week. So yeah, lots and lots of stuff cooking. So I just wanted to mention that. All right. Anyway, tonight's topic is how to really bring Call of Cthulhu to life at your game table. And we will talk about that right after this brief intermission.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out for a delicious snack in our sparkling refreshment building. Every item a fresh, appetizing taste treat.
and gentlemen, this commercial is going to use subliminal advertising. That means you will never see or hear the name of the product. Oh, it'll be there on the screen, all right, but the naked eye cannot detect it. This way you sit back, relax, and enjoy me as I tell you this rather funny story. It seems that these three men decided to take a trip. The second guy goes back to the dry cleaner, says... He opens the little door, goes... So the third guy says, yeah, but you better bring back the hangers.
Help, I've been imprisoned.
Why, fair damsel?
I don't drink Wilkins instant coffee.
Well, that's the way the old ball bounces.
Watch this car very carefully. In just a few seconds, the man driving it is going to die. What made him crash to his death?
Your patients taking brain treatments. Yet he died from some kind of cerebral trouble just after he left this clinic.
Perhaps it would help to clarify matters if I explained that some years ago I discovered a new technique in the treatment of certain neuroses. It involves what one might loosely term electronic hypnosis.
Electronic hypnosis. It was a way of drugging a man's brain with weird sounds and strange pictures so that he craved for more and yet more.
And who is Paul Zachin?
And I'm going to marry him.
Well, congratulations.
After you and I broke up, why, I seemed to go to pieces. But Paul has been very good to me.
Well, I have no one to blame but myself. So here's to the future, Mrs. Paul Zachin.
For a moment, you had me worried, Doctor. I cannot be a party to what may be murder.
Starring Rod Cameron as an insurance investigator, probing the cause of a man's sudden death. Mary Murphy as Ruth, the girl who walked into a spider's web of terror and was trapped. Peter Illing as Zamkan, who created for his patients a strange new world of escape.
Cleveland RX points out, hey, this is the same intermission as last week. What's going on here? I'll tell you what. I'll share whatever damn intermission I want, and you'll like it. Something weird's going on because I specifically swapped that out earlier today for the new intermission I actually put together for tonight's. I don't know. It's an OBS thing, I guess. Russell Higgins says, yeah, what he said. As Russell Higgins was with us in chat. But yeah, funny enough, I noticed that. But unfortunately, I didn't notice that because usually when the brief intermission is going on, I'm not just sitting here like watching it, right? I'm usually doing something. And sometimes I'll like grab what I'm going to share. Oh, hey, did you see this review I've done, for the end of the show? And then about 2 minutes in, I noticed, I was like, oh, shit. What the hell? I will point out, though, the intermission that I had planned is almost 5 minutes in length. So that'll be tomorrow. So keep that in mind if you're tuning in for tomorrow's show. And you're like, oh, man, I got to take a bathroom break here. When's that intermission coming up? You'll have about 5 minutes. Kevin King says, before the 50s, Sam Spade, hard-boiled detective. After the 50s, Ron, the insurance adjuster, on the case. Yes, we did talk about that last week. It's sort of like, where did people in the 1950s, real early 1960s, get the idea that insurance investigators lived a life like James Bond? It's like, what? Don't think so. One last item I should mention before we jump into tonight's topic is October will be old school October. So I will have a focus on old school styled role-playing games and adventures. They do not necessarily have to be OSR, right? Because my definition of OSR is different than many grognards' definition is. So keep that in mind. All right. So tonight, we're going to kick off our spooky September. See, I lied. I did it that way again. And talk about ways to really bring Call of Cthulhu to life at your game table. And when I say bring it to life, I'm talking about how to get the most out of Call of Cthulhu. Because Call of Cthulhu is a very unique role-playing game. It is a very unique style of game. So Kevin R. Smith is popping in the chat, as well as William Helhezaius. Welcome to you both. Kevin R. Smith is asking if they're in time for the discussion. Yes, I'm just kicking it off. So to effectively run Call of Cthulhu, you have to look at the game far, far differently than you would if you were running Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder or Traveler or just about any other genre. Even other horror role-playing games. Unless they're horror role-playing games that kind of have a topic of cosmic horror or Lovecraftian horror, the mythos. Because you're looking at Lovecraft's work is, pretty much public domain now. So anybody can put together a Lovecraft board game, role-playing game, computer game, what have you, and they don't have to pay anybody. So that is one of the reasons why you see so much influence from Lovecraft in pop culture. It's not the only reason because, H.P. Lovecraft, as many people such as Stephen King believe, is the father of modern horror. But because it is public domain, there is no copyright holder. That's why you do see a lot of mythos-themed games and books and things like that. So anyway, as far as Call of Cthulhu goes, like I said, it's a different sort of role-playing game experience. So the first thing I recommend you do if you are interested in running Call of Cthulhu or any mythos-styled role-playing game is find out if that sort of horror game is going to be right for yourself and your group. Because as a keeper or game master, I say it all the time, the person who needs to be the happiest at the table has to be the game master, not the players. It's got to be the game master, because if the players are having a good time and the game master isn't, there is no incentive for the game master to continue outside of, well, everybody's having fun, I don't want to pull the plug on it. But at some point in time, if the game master is not having a great time running a game, they're going to bail on it. It's just a fact. So first thing I always recommend, make sure that Lovecraftian horror is for you. So read The Dunwich Horror, read Shadow over Innsmouth, read The Whisperer in Darkness with one of my favorite mythos races, the Migo, the fungi from Yuggoth or whatever the hell it's called. I also recommend check out At the Mountains of Madness. It is a novella, so it is a bit longer, but still, it is excellent. And it's great introduction to Lovecraftian horror. If your style of horror is more along the lines of, say, Stephen King's Salem's Lot, then you might want to probably go in a different direction as far as your role-playing game system. Although not to say that you couldn't use Call of Cthulhu to effectively play any horror genre. It's just not tooled specifically for that sort of thing. Something else I always point out, I mentioned this because we talked a little bit about this last week on Thursday's show during the AMA. Somebody had asked me for some tips as far as running Call of Cthulhu. And I thought, okay, you know what? I'll do like a top 10 or 11 and run with that. And one of them that I had mentioned on Thursday's show was use Lovecraftian language when describing the unnatural and things which are eldritch. And then use just your normal vocabulary when you're talking about things which occupy the natural world. Because one aspect of Lovecraftian horror is it's really cosmic horror. It's really the first entry into what's considered to be cosmic horror. And some Lovecraft stories really do kind of skew more science fiction than they do, say, horror stories. So there is an alienness about things. Like I had talked about with the different entities, the various different old ones, the Nyarlathoteps, the Cthulhu, the Azathoth. There is no like thinking process involved. We as human beings cannot understand what their game plan is. So, and of course, humans are like, insects to them. So you want to make things very alien, very unusual. So as an example, if like Migo are involved in an adventure, there's usually like weird, strange technology. Well, you want to make sure that that weird, strange technology does come across as weird and strange. So you want to invest a little time into coming up, if it's not laid out for you. Like, okay, well, this is what it looks like. This is what it does. Usually you'll get what it does. You may not necessarily get the like lowdown on how weird it looks. It might just look like a weird science kind of thing. I avoid that. So I have run adventures which have the Migo. Like I said, they're pretty much my favorite Lovecraftian mythos race. And I always tend to go more like organic machinery. So remember, they're fungi, they're fungus. They sort of look like insects. I personally prefer like the fly-looking Migo from the old like Call of Cthulhu releases. You would see them on the cover, as opposed to some of the representation and kind of different style, kind of character design that we see in other releases. So I tend to skew more towards the bug look. Help me, help me. I was a kid that freaked the shit out of me. I remember seeing that movie as I was probably 6 or 7. I don't think I saw the whole movie. I only saw a little bit and then the end. And I remember we were at one of my mom's friends' houses, and she was talking with her friend, and I was in the other room, and the TV was on, and that scene in The Fly came up, and I nearly peed myself. Help me. Help me. Ooh, still creeps me out. See, now that is another tip as far as bringing Call of Cthulhu to life at your game table. Steal things that made you uncomfortable, or utilize things that you know makes your players uncomfortable. And when I say makes them uncomfortable, we're not talking like X card stuff, right? We're not talking about, oh, well, I'm going to talk about a topic that's just going to be like, holy shit, how did this game turn to this, right? I'm not talking about that. But as an example, right? So I know my best friend, Elliot Miller, he does not like spiders a lot. So I know if there's any way that I can involve spider webs, right? Spiders, and they don't have to be like giant spiders or anything like that. Just the concept of spiders, it's like, ooh, it's not like, oh my God, he's traumatized, right? Because I wouldn't do that. But you want to really do that. And what you can do is you can, of course, obviously enough, if you want to utilize an X card at your table, of course, have an index card, toss it out, middle of the game table. All anybody's got to do is point to it. Fine, moving along, fading to black on that. Zip, zip, zip. But I pointed out before, there is no point to playing a horror role-playing game if you're not going to get spooked. Now, keep in mind, let's be real here. It's a role-playing game. It's not like you're going to be, oh my God, I was terrorized by that. Now I can't sleep. That rarely happens. In fact, years and years ago when we did the podcast for Halloween, our topic was, could a board game actually be scary? And Elliot said yes, and I said absolutely not. Because it's obviously just a board game. Now, role-playing games can take you deeper in to the experience. So I could see somebody saying, oh man, that game we played last week, I had a nightmare, because Elliot's told me that before. And it's not like, oh my gosh, my life is ruined. It was just like, wow, it was weird. I had a nightmare about that adventure we were playing. And I got to be honest, in some ways, I'm like, okay, cool. I think to myself, I did my job. I spooked you. So that is a recommendation that I have, and that is to know how to twist the knife. And you can do it in a couple of ways. One is with player characters, right? So when you have backstories and when you have connections with the player characters and each other and NPCs, you can utilize those bonds and make things scary, make things, bring home the horror. So that's why a lot of times in Call of Cthulhu adventures, NPCs buy the farm relatively regularly. And a lot of times when you want to really drive home the horror of the situation, you just take out one of the NPCs. And if there's an NPC that the players themselves have created some sort of attachment to, and a lot of times it's very, very easy to do this. You don't have to have an NPC popping up in, a year worth of sessions for it to be, oh my gosh, Bob got killed by that thing. No, not at all. Peaceful Porcupine is with us in chat, as is Maddie C. I hopefully have not missed anybody popping on in. JD Sewell 3002 is also swinging on in to hang out. So looks like we got a very nice chat rocking and rolling here. Sorry if you're like throwing questions and stuff out. Kind of missing some of those because I'm kind of focused on sharing these tips with you. But so once again, try to learn ways for you to twist the knife. And like I said, you can twist the knife as towards the player characters, right? With, looking at the various bonds that they have with NPCs or together within themselves. Normally what I tend to do with Call of Cthulhu Adventures is, because I don't tend to run Call of Cthulhu Adventures with a lot of players. It's usually about 3 players. Sometimes I'm lucky I have 4. So I will pop in an NPC that is part of their team. And of course, if somebody needs to take a dirt nap, it's usually that NPC more times than not. Also, I should point out, because the vast majority of the experience at your game table is based on the keeper's voice, learn how to change like the timbre of your voice. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that like NPCs, you have to put on a whole presentation for every NPC and they all have to have a different accent and things like that. No, not at all. In fact, one way that you can trick your players into thinking that an NPC is not important is to kind of play them off as your usual NPC, right? So most game masters, when somebody goes, oh, well, they go to the village's shop to go buy something. The game master isn't sitting there, putting on a performance for the shopkeeper, right? It's just, regular, whatever, just having a conversation. You can trick your players into thinking that NPCs aren't important when they first meet them, and you just treat that NPC as a throwaway NPC and then come back and reveal that, holy shit, that storekeeper is a serial killer. We were in the basement of his shop. There's all these bodies. Works really, really well. But as a keeper, what you want to do is you want to learn to modulate your voice. Raise your voice at times. Whisper at times. Use dramatic pauses. One thing that I tend to do quite a bit, and it's not only in horror role-playing games, is that I will kind of like set a scene, and then suddenly, right? So it's kind of funny because some of the players will be like, and then I like pick back up with something, and it's when I want the players to have some sort of kind of to feel like they're kind of on the wrong foot, right? That everything's not cut and dry, right? That it's not just the usual regular day for them. So I try to keep them a little off balance sometimes by doing that. That's one of the things that I'll tend to do. Going back to NPCs, try to make your NPCs memorable or make your NPCs mundane. Because as far as my thought process, if you're a game master, you've got so much energy that you can invest into that session. And that might be because of things that you have to take care of in the real world, right? It's not like when I was in high school and during the summer, we could get together and play Call of Cthulhu 5 days of the week. So most people have a short period of time to get together, maybe weekly, maybe every other week for a few hours. So you don't want to invest a whole lot of time and energy into NPCs who are just throwaway NPCs. And they might be named NPCs in an adventure if you're using a published adventure. But on the flip side of that, when you have important NPCs, take some time out to flesh them out in your head. You don't necessarily have to jot down tons of notes about that NPC and their backstory and things like that. You want to have an idea of that character within that adventure. So we talk about this with role-playing game adventures where it's, sometimes you'll see an adventure where it's like everything's info dump, info dump, info dump. And it's like, I don't need to know these things. I don't need to know all the backstory and the history of this storage room. I don't. I just need to know what's in there now. What has this to do with the adventurers who are going through the dungeon or whatever? Same thing with your NPCs, but try to flesh them out. We talked about this last week, that villains normally think they're the hero of the story. Now, of course, with Lovecraftian horror, not as often, because a lot of times they're just insane and been driven insane by learning things that man was not meant to know. But still, you should make your NPCs memorable. And these are the kind of things that your players will come back and talk about years down the line about, oh my gosh, XYZ villain when we were playing that Orient Express campaign. Wow, oh man, I can't believe when they did this and then we did this. It's never, oh man, I can't believe I rolled that critical hit. That's not stuff that's memorable. Something else I like to do is I like to pass notes to my players, even if the note says hello. And I tell my players they are not to reveal what those notes say unless I tell them they can. So sometimes, all depends on the adventure. Sometimes if it's something that a player character would know, but the character, or I should say the player themselves, don't know it, I will toss them a quick note, or I may have already written a note ahead of time to give them, and then they can reveal that if they want to do it like role-playing wise, or just say, oh, well, my character knows whatever. That's fine. But I like sharing notes because it makes people uneasy. It's like, what did that note say? I can't tell you. Huh? Because remember, you do have the sanity mechanics in Call of Cthulhu. So a lot of times players around the table are thinking, well, wait a second. So when we just saw that blob thing outside that was absorbing that woman, and we all made sanity rolls, I know Elliot lost some sanity there. Is he like temporarily insane now? I don't know, because that's not something that you just, as a keeper, say, okay, well, now you're. So there's some discussion about Wesen. It's actually, I like that role-playing game. The adventures are really different. They really are. And then they did a campaign. Now I can't remember the name of it, something Mountain. And it was pretty good. It was like 5 adventures that were tied together. Vason tends to have adventures that are more sorrowful than horrific. There's always some sort of sadness, it seems, with many of the adventures. And they almost have a folklorish vibe to them because many of the creatures that the investigators run across are folkloric. But even the adventures themselves sort of do have kind of like a feel like the players are in a folk story. And I think part of it too that helps with the setting is it's turn of the 20th century. So we do also have sort of that old world, new world conflict. The only problem I mainly have with Vason releases is you don't get a lot. There's a lot of just empty white space in the books. So what's in there is good. But as far as like the word count, I mean, you'll see like a 120-page book, and the word count is pretty much what you might find with an 80-page adventure book from somebody else. So that's one of the knocks I've got, and I have mentioned that in reviews, but I do like that. I do like that game. It certainly doesn't replace my favorite, Call of Cthulhu. There you go. Gleewin RX, The Lost Mountain Saga. There's other adventures that they have that you could kind of tie together as campaigns, but they play better as just individual adventures. I will say one of the things that I don't think Vason does very well is character advancement. So as far as like playing a campaign outside of it being, well, you know, it's this story led to this story, led to that story. And that's why, you know, we're continuing to play. There isn't a ton of great character advancement. I mean, there's character advancement, but it just doesn't feel like you're achieving a lot. Just my impression. All right, next tip I have is, as a keeper, you should always be rooting for your player characters. Now, this kind of goes without saying for any role-playing game, but it has to be said for Call of Cthulhu too, because the odds are usually stacked up against them. And you also want to make sure that you are not going to be easy on your investigators, because then why play the game? And I know there's, you know, the whole, oh, Call of Cthulhu tends to be total party kill. Not with a good keeper running the show. Now, there is player character death. I mean, there's no getting around it. So, Flaming Heron says, even the stupid players. I said you're a fan of the investigators. I didn't say you're a fan of the players. Should root for the investigators. the reality is if your investigators do stupid things, then they pay the consequences. It's Call of Cthulhu. You got to do that. So don't make it easy on them, but don't go out of the way to be unfair. I mean, you should kind of be a little lenient, I guess. Like I said, like if there's an important NPC that the investigators have befriended who's been helping them out, and maybe they're at that location and you run across a monster or whatever, the monster should take out the NPC. The monster shouldn't just be making a beeline to one of your player characters. But then again, on the flip side of that, you don't want the monster to always focus on the NPC. There has to be the threat of player character death to make the game entertaining. That's kind of how I look at any role-playing game that has conflict and combat and things like that. If there is no chance for the player character to be killed, there's no consequences then. So anyway, like I said, as the keeper, you should be rooting for the investigators because, for one, if they all get killed, it's going to be very difficult for you to complete that adventure or campaign. And then you have to go through all the work of kind of, okay, so how do these new investigators come in? And something else I recommend, stay organized before, during, and after your game session. And there's nothing worse than sitting there playing a game when the game master doesn't remember an NPC's name or what their role is in the scene that they're playing out or whatever, simply because they're not organized. So if you are running a published adventure, jot down some notes before you play. So you kind of, okay, so this is what I normally will do. If I'm running an adventure that is published, which in all honesty is normally what I do. I do not homebrew stuff from scratch. Now I deconstruct things and put them back together differently. I do that pretty much with every adventure, but I don't homebrew things from scratch. I just don't have time. So what I tend to do is get a feel for, and of course I've been running Call of Cthulhu long enough that I can do this. I'll have a feel for how far are we going to get in this session. And then I'll push it a little further than that so that I will have, okay, so these are our important NPCs. These are the important locations. These are things that could happen depending on what the player characters do. And I'll have that handy. So that way, when I'm describing the action and maybe I need to reference somebody that the player characters met an hour and a half ago, game-wise, real-time-wise, I can just throw their name out there because I've got it in front of me and I'm like, oh, okay, that was the shopkeeper's daughter's name. Yep, boom. Oh, so that was back when you were talking to Mary. So stay organized before, during, and then after, because especially with Call of Cthulhu, I tend to like to end my sessions on cliffhangers. And it's important if you are doing something like that, that when you start up the session next time, that you can jump right on in and try to pick up with the same sort of energy that you left off with. And it's difficult to do that if you're kind of like, so wait a second. I know we were at this point, but what were you doing? I don't remember what you were doing. So that I definitely recommend. Something else, if you are running Call of Cthulhu in a different time than our modern era, understand that era. One of the things I've always really enjoyed about Call of Cthulhu and the best Call of Cthulhu adventures is the underlying history. Some of the best Call of Cthulhu adventures utilize real world history in their proceedings and not necessarily what's going on right then that moment, but what's happened in the past. So if you are running, say, a Call of Cthulhu campaign that takes place in the traditional era, the 1920s, 1930s, understand, how did people get around? How did people travel? How did people get to work? How did people get their news? How did people learn about the latest events, right? So if it's the 1930s, it's newspapers, it's radio. And of course, word on the street, right? But if it's 1930s and it's taking place in a good sized city, that city has multiple newspapers, and those newspapers are published multiple times a day. A lot of people don't realize that. So if I'm running an adventure that's taking place in Chicago or New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, what have you, and it's the 1930s, I know damn well that the San Francisco Examiner is going to have 3 or 4 newspapers a day. May have had more than that. But understand that. Understand there's no computers. Understand that people don't have a phone in their pocket. Some people don't own telephones in their homes. That in the 1920s and 30s, telephones are not necessarily a luxury, but everybody doesn't have one. Even in a big city, there are like people who rent who don't have a phone. They're boarding houses or apartments or like residential hotels, right? You've probably seen movies where it's, you know, it's not like a flop house, but it's a residential hotel that somebody lives in. And it's like, hey, knock, knock, knock. You got a phone call. And they walk down the hall and there's a telephone. Understand those things. You don't have to know the ins and outs and every damn thing that took place during that period of time, but have a feel for it. Because when your players don't know these things, they do find themselves to be like, wow, my nephew Cameron playing Call of Cthulhu, he'll be like, wow, I didn't know that. And it's sort of like just a little extra entertainment tossed in there. And it helps immerse the players into that adventure, into that campaign. Last thing, last tip that I've got. Never provide any answers to what's going on to your players. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. It's far too tempting for game masters to tell players after a session is over or after they've wrapped up an adventure to talk to the players about what they missed or what they could have done differently or what the actual machinations of the villain was, or what did the players do wrong? You want to do that in Dungeons and Dragons, stuff like that? Fine. Feel free. Do not do it in Call of Cthulhu. Now, if you're in the middle of a game and a question comes up about something that your player characters would know or that particular player character would know, yes, of course, you're answering questions. But you don't want to show the man or woman behind the curtain. Because when you start doing that, then the whole sort of, what would be the word that I would want to use? Mystique that Call of Cthulhu has, that Lovecraftian horror has, cosmic horror has. When you start telling the players where they went wrong, what was really going on, oh, it was these deep ones, so on and so forth, you, in my opinion, you ruin the game for the future. Just like you never tell people what the name of a monster is, ever. You don't say, oh, it was a deep one. Oh, the Shoggoth. No, never. You describe what it is, even if they've seen it 100 times. It's another one of those frog-like amphibian creatures with the bulging eyes, whatever. But it's never, oh, yeah. Oh, it's a Migo. It's another, there's two Migos sitting there and they look like they're working on some sort of a ray gun. No. Never. Michael Mullen is with us in chat. Says, in the early age of the telephone, you picked up the receiver, waited for the operator to acknowledge, and you told them who you were trying to reach. Yes. In fact, if you see movies where sometimes it's movies from the early 1930s, or if it's like a modern film that's set in that time period, and they pick up that weird looking receiver, and then they crank the phone. People think that was to notify the operator. As far as I understand, they cranked that to create a charge for the phone. I don't know. I never used one of those phones. So, anyway, so those are some of the tips that I recommend if you're running Call of Cthulhu. And as you can see, some of these tips that I've got, some of the advice that I've got is very easily applicable to just about any role-playing game that you run. Doesn't matter what the genre is. And then there are other things where it's sort of like you take a little bit of a different approach if you're running Call of Cthulhu. And I have shared some of those things as well. So there you have it. So I talk about it all the time. Call of Cthulhu is my absolute favorite role-playing game. I have run it for well over 40 years. Wish I got an opportunity to run it more. I don't. In fact, the campaign I started off doing, kind of fizzled out because nobody can get together. It's always 2 or 3 people are available. The other person, no, they can't. It's like, oh no, I'm working. No, my brother flies for Southwest. It'll be, well, I'm flying. Or my nephew Cameron, it's like, no, I have to work that night. Or Elliot's like, no, I can't, get away from the house that day. So, oh well. But I still love my Call of Cthulhu. And we always refer to it as C of C. I know a lot of people out there, it's COC. But we've called it C of C since 1981, 82-ish. So there you have that. All righty. That is it for this time out. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. We'll not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Central right here on YouTube. We'll also let you know when I share other videos, such as my recent review of Jewel of the Indigo Isles, the Pathfinder edition from our sponsor this month, Roll for Combat. Yes, big thank you to Roll for Combat being our sponsor for the month of September and into October. So tomorrow's topic, I am bouncing around. See, I don't know if I want to do this topic or not. So if you want, you can, if you're watching this, of course, if you're watching this after the fact, let me know in the comment section. I'm thinking maybe as a topic, wondering why is Dungeons and Dragons content creators a punching bag now? Sort of been a punching bag in the past, but it seems like the last month or so, it has gotten like really brutal. It's sort of like, I kind of know the reason why we're seeing so much of that. So I'm thinking maybe that'll be tomorrow's topic. I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Mike says I should do a show just telling stories, my favorite Call of Cthulhu events from playing for so long. Cool adventures, I'm sure. Yeah, I could do that for spooky September. Yeah, I could share like Call of Cthulhu tales. Rogue Thinker was with us in chat. Good to see you. I'm sure I missed a few people. Kabuki Kid says, clickbait? Could be. Could be. Anyway, if you're watching live, thank you very much. If you watched live and took part in chat, a bigger thank you. Because not only are you keeping me company, you keep each other company, especially as I was going through my tips on Call of Cthulhu. I was kind of focused on that quite a bit. But of course, I know a lot of folks out there, they don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Thank you very much for taking time out to watch any of the videos here on the YouTube channel. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit gaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Thank you very much for watching. I will be back tomorrow. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer, and here's hoping all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.